Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Another beautiful day. And here we go again. I cannot wait to get into this conversation because this evening we're talking about what it takes to be successful, what it takes to have a great idea and just make it happen. How do you do that thing? So far we've been talking about the whole business of talking to people who work at really large organizations, right? We've talked to people from all manner of large asset management firms, and we've kind of asked them, about their journey and what it's taken to get them to where they are. But the fact is, being successful isn't just about working at a large firm. Sometimes it's about waking up and just deciding, I have a great idea and I'm going to make it happen, which is why this evening I'm absolutely delighted. I'm thrilled. I'm so pumped to be talking to two of the hottest co-founders in the United Kingdom today. So Nii Cleland and Daryl Coker, welcome guys. How are you?
Very well, thank you. Very much looking forward to this. Thanks so much for the opportunity.
No, it's just great. It's great. I'm so excited that you guys taking the time out to come and talk to us. I know you're busy. I know you're doing really good things. Let's just start with some introductions. So let's start with you, Nii. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us, where are you from, and just tell us, who are you?
Of course. So I'm from North London, Ghanaian descent. Went to Warwick to study economics. After that, went and worked for Goldman Sachs for a couple of years in emerging market sales. Really enjoyed my time there. Really good start to my career. Decided for a few reasons that I wanted to do something else. And at that same time, Daryl, do you want to go?
Yeah, so I live in London as well, also Ghanaian descent, and Nii and I are actually cousins, interestingly enough. And I also went to Warwick, and after graduating, I was kind of working out what to do. I was going down the corporate path, had a job offer at Accenture, and I guess over the course of a few months before starting, I decided I actually wanted to do something different. So Nii and I teamed up and we ended up setting up Flair. And then 4.5 years later, we're still on this wild journey. So can't complain about how things have gone.
Yeah, and it's a wild journey. But let's just take it back a little bit, because here you are at Goldman Sachs and you got an offer from Accenture. This is big stuff, right? So the world is your oyster. You guys are totally set. But you decide to back yourselves. You decide that you've got something bigger, more ambitious, big, hairy, audacious goal that you're going to pursue instead. Tell me a little bit about that. I mean, how is it that you were at Goldman and Accenture, you've got this whole thing going, and then, seemingly you have everything, but you decide, and you're young when you're doing this, right? You decide, no, we're not going to do that. We're going to team up and we're going to do something different. What was the mindset?
I've come from quite an entrepreneurial family. So my dad's a businessman, and I'd kind of always had in my mind that I was going to start something. Perhaps didn't think it would happen as early as it did, but the timing was right for various reasons. And it actually was quite an easy decision. Like when things align, oftentimes making the leap is quite easy to do. I didn't have an idea of what I was going to build when I left Goldman. It was very much a risk. But I guess getting into Goldman gave me a lot of confidence in myself that I could achieve things that are statistically very improbable. And if I could do that, why couldn't I create a business? So yeah, that was kind of my mindset. I wasn't afraid or anything. It was just, you know what, let's give it another go.
And I mean, Daryl, was this because you guys had a whole ton of cash backing you? I mean, it's kind of easy to step out and do your own thing if you've got a huge amount of money coming from some trust fund, or was this literally you guys were just, no, we're going to back ourselves. We don't have a huge amount, but we're just going to do this?
Yeah, it was just really just backing ourselves and going for it. I think I reflect back on the early days when we were just starting, and it was literally just mock-ups and drawings on pieces of paper, trying to hatch up an idea and build something big. So ultimately we kind of took the approach of, life's short, we're young, we're fortunate that other offers aren't necessarily going to close on us if we decide to try this, and if things don't work out, we would have learned a lot, we would have made a lot of progress and built a lot of connections. And we've kind of seen that by taking that approach of just going for something, setting a goal and just pursuing it, the downside risk is actually a lot smaller than it often seems. I think one of the misconceptions about starting a business, especially if you were like me and coming out of university, is that it's that or it's nothing. And if it fails, you're going to be jobless for the rest of your career and not succeed. But I know many people who've also started businesses coming out of university, and whether it's succeeded or failed, they're all doing completely fine right now. So for me, it was just a question of life short, we have an opportunity, and we just backed ourselves to build something big. And yeah, so far it's been going quite well.
Yeah. So let's get into it, because you started, and Flair, when I first met you guys to talk about that, I mean, I've known you guys for a long time, but when we started talking about the business you were setting up, Flair has kind of pivoted and morphed into something different. So it started in the world of football, right? So what was that all about? And just talk us through that part of the journey, the initial incarnation of Flair.
Sure. I guess we always say that when we're thinking of ideas, we always try and make them meet three criteria. The first being, are we passionate about it? So could we do this for 10 years plus? The second being, is it big enough? So is this something that if we create, it could be a huge business? And the third is kind of what makes us the best people to do this? Like, do we have a unique advantage? And with Flair Football, which was our first product, we felt we qualified for all three of those things. We're super passionate about football, huge fans, played all our lives. The market is absolutely massive in terms of the number of players. And I guess what made us unique was that we were young. So we understood the generation of young footballers. We played all our lives, and we were based in the UK, which is the center for football. And our idea was basically to create something akin to Strava, but for youth football. So a way for young football players to share their match reports, to track their stats, to interact with their teammates. And yeah, that's when we came up with that first product. Darryl, do you want to elaborate?
Yeah, so I guess we really sat down from first principles and had to figure out how to build a mobile app, because neither of us can actually code. So we're approaching this with an idea, as I said, pieces of paper, basically just mocking up different designs for this mobile app. And we had to really go on a steep learning curve to figure out how to actually do this. So we really kind of racked our brains. We managed to bring on technical expertise within the organization. And before we knew it, we were basically leading the product development side of a mobile product, where we had no previous experience actually doing that. And over the course of a few years, we built up the team, we built up our user base to around 25,000 users. And yeah, we had a lot of ups and downs. I think 2020 was a very pivotal year, as we'll come on to soon. But I think throughout all of that, we really learned how to run a business, how to actually grow a team, how to manage people, and how to prioritize between different things when you're building a mobile product.
Yeah, and we'll come on to what it takes to show real leadership and build a great team in a second. But so you get hit by the pandemic and everything shuts down, right? There is no football, no one's doing anything with a ball anywhere. What happens next, Nee? How do you then deal with that? And did you pivot? What happened?
Yeah, so when the pandemic hit, we were running out of cash. We were just about to launch an investment round. We had 6 employees, we're burning a lot of money per month. And we basically said to our investors, we are probably going to either die or we need to think of a new idea. And around that sort of time, George Floyd was murdered, and Darren and I, being Black founders, were asked to do a lot of like tech talks in the tech industry about diversity and inclusion. And we started kind of reflecting on our own experiences with race. And we just felt that organizations were doing a lot of talking and not a lot of action. And in the instances where they said they were going to do stuff, we felt that it was really hard for them to actually prove it and be accountable to it. And that's when we had our next idea, which was Flair Impact, which we can talk a bit about as well. But
yeah, I'd love to hear a bit about Flair Impact. Tell us a bit about it, how it, what does it do? What's the big idea?
Yeah, so in effect, we're a people analytics company. So we've built a 3-step process. It's a survey that goes out to all members of an organization. And really what we're trying to uncover is, from the perspective of the people who work within an organization, how anti-racist is the culture. So is it a culture where people don't have ethnicity as a barrier to being themselves and to actually being included? is it a place where people are racially aware of how to actually handle instances of racism that take place on a day-to-day basis? Is there racial diversity? Are there levels of, I guess, racist behaviors within the organization? And really, we're big believers that if an organization wants to understand if it's moving towards racial equity, it needs to start by speaking to its people, because they're the ones who kind of define the culture. So in effect, the survey sent out, we then visualize the results on a dashboard, and we then give organizations, I guess, clear step-by-step guides on what they need to do next to address their biggest problems. And yeah, the reason we took this approach, like Nee said, is just because it's really easy to come up with solutions and talk the talk when it comes to building a world of racial equality, but really you need to measure things if you want to make progress. And we felt that that part of things was really missing from a lot of different organizations. So
yeah, this is big. I mean, Nee, this is huge, right? Because whenever I'm having these conversations, we very quickly run into the argument that there's no data and no one really knows what's actually happening on the ground. Whereas, as I understand it, what this is doing is it's beautiful visuals. It tells you what's happening, and it shows you how you can exactly what you can do to improve and to get better and to measure what's happening, right?
Yes, it's all storytelling. And I think 2020 was the best kind of proof that storytelling is important. When people are doing all these listening exercise and focus groups and hearing the stories of ethnic minorities, that's when real action, or like real not action, that's the wrong word, an intent for change really started happening. So we felt that we needed to create a product that can tell a story. And that's where our background building a mobile app came in handy, because we've always been focused on building kind of beautiful user experiences that people like to look at. And the product itself is very visual, it's dynamic, it's colorful, it tells a story. And yeah, I think that is why the clients are really getting a lot of value of using the product, because they're able to then tell that story to their leadership. So our typical buyer is, let's say, an HR lead or a D&I lead who needs to do this survey and then report on the findings to their executive team. Because our data is so visual, they're able to tell that story in a concise way.
And I love the fact that you guys are doing it with, you said, you know, one of the criteria is what gives us kind of a special skill in whatever it is we're doing, or a special, you know, perspective. And I guess by definition, you guys are both Ghanaian heritage. You're Black, and so if anyone has the perspective, it would be you. And has that been an advantage? Your ability to say, this is what it's like to be us. Therefore, this is what we need to build. These are the kinds of questions that we need to ask within organizations.
I'd say more than an advantage, it's been pivotal. I don't think it's really possible to build the type of product we've built without that. And the fact that we've had this lived experience and we know what it's like to be in those organizations or in those institutes where we're experiencing different issues, and it's hard to really quantify and hard to really tell that story of what you're experiencing. So that has completely formed the basis of the questions we ask, the way that we approach things, the fact that we have an approach all around getting the voice of every single member, because we've seen that our voice at times has not necessarily been heard, whether that's been at school or whether that's just been generally living through life. And that's been really important, is having that lived experience to kind of inform what we do.
Yeah, I mean, Nee, I know you obviously can just speak for yourself, but I'll come to Daryl in a second. But to what extent has race played any kind of role in your journey? By which I mean, have you ever felt, you know what, that wouldn't have happened to me if I hadn't got the racial demographic that I have? Has that ever been a thing anywhere on your journey?
Oh, definitely. Right from school, right until now. I guess I'll give an example in business. When Daryl and I first started Flair, it was called Spotters. And we planned to rebrand to Flair. And we were working with a Premier League club at the time. And we mentioned to them that we were about to rebrand. And someone very senior in a Premier League club's response to that was, what are you going to rebrand to? two Black boys giving it a go. And we were just like,
Surely not.
yeah, like, I don't think I spoke a word for the rest of the meeting because I was just in absolute shock. And that was the moment where I properly realized how rare it is for Black founders to build something like what we were doing. I looked at my phone and looked at the apps on my phone and went through and looked who were the founders of each of them. And I couldn't find a Black founder across them. And that moment made me even more motivated to create this tech business, because unless people like us are doing it, we're not going to be able, people like everyone watching today won't be inspired to think that they too can do it. So yeah, that was just one example of
That's just outrageous. That's just ridiculous that someone would say something like that. I mean, I don't even know what to say. Daryl, I mean, if you got the same sort of, I guess maybe you weren't even in the same meeting, but I mean, you coming from the same perspective as far as race is concerned in your journey?
Completely. I think one of the big concerns is that it started really young in that sense. So I remember being at school, and I think I was probably in year 4 or 5, and I did quite well at that age at school. And I think one of my teachers saw my grades one day and said to my parents, you know what, I was just really, really surprised that Daryl did so well in this test. And I couldn't quite put my finger on why that was. And my mum at the time, obviously being more alert to what was going on than me, she was trying to basically educate me that sometimes as a Black person, you feel like you have to work twice as hard. And I just didn't really understand some of those experiences. And if I think back to my time at school, or my time at university, my time in the working world, the more I reflect on some of those experiences like that, the more that you start to realize the smaller, less overt racial biases that kind of just integrate into everyday life. And I think it started from youth, and it will most likely continue, but it's just one of those things that I guess you just learn to live with, and you just try to continue and do your best.
Yeah, it's an interesting point that you either try to just live with it and just accept that it's just the way the system is, and if you're gonna be in the system, then you just have to kind of navigate it, or you do what you guys are doing, which is to try and, well, not to try, you are changing it. I mean, you're literally building something. I love the fact that you guys aren't bitter. You're just like, okay, in that case, this is what we're going to do. We're going to change this, and we're going to do it big. We're going to do this thing at scale. I mean, is this something that drives you? You wake up every day and think we're a step closer to changing the way it is?
Yeah, I mean, seeing a metric like how many survey participants have taken the survey and seeing that go up and up each day, and knowing that taking that survey in itself is a learning experience that raises people's racial awareness, it gives us a lot of feedback on the impact that we're making, which is super, super important. And it's in our name, Flare Impact. Like, we are actually an impact company now. This is a personal business. The football app was something we enjoyed, but it wasn't personal. Now it's a very, very personal mission, and that makes it really easy to wake up to and kind of crack on with it each and every day.
Yeah, and I mean, I've followed you guys on your journey from the start, as you know. We've been behind you guys and watched you at every point. It's incredibly impressive. What does success look like for you? I mean, 2, 3, 4 years from now, what, where is Flare Impact? What's it doing? And let's say use the word impact. What impact is it having?
Yeah, good question. We've actually just been discussing this as founders over the past few days. So I guess the main thing is around trying to build a world where all ethnicities can thrive. And we know that race-related issues, it will take centuries, millennia to get to an end goal where there is complete racial equality. We may never, ever get there because of how ingrained some of the problems are. And for us, it's about impacting as many companies as we can, impacting as many organizations and as many people actually taking our survey, actually having that experience of reflecting on their experiences, whether it's reflecting on negative experiences or reflecting on maybe privileges that they've had in their life. Because until we get to the point where more people in the world are going through that kind of system and really having to think about this from a young age all the way through to being in the workplace, I don't think we're ever going to really see real change. So for me, it's around the number of people that we engage with and really growing this globally one day to be something that is used far and wide.
So give me an example of some learnings that have come out of the survey. What would you say an organization comes to you and says, okay, we'd like to do the survey. By the way, how long does the survey take to do? If someone wants to, one person does a survey, how long does that take?
Yeah, it's about 12 minutes.
12 minutes. Okay. So this is not a big, this isn't going to take an hour of your time. It's 12 minutes. Okay. So then you have a whole group of people in the organization take the survey, and it's already been happening. What sort of insights are you getting? What's a classic example of the journey that the firm goes on? You know, what do you go back to the firm with and say, we'd like to just show you your results. This is what jumps off the page.
Yeah, I think one of the huge things is just around the education piece of how to respond to different types of racism. So we've got a section in the survey that's a situational judgment, where we present different scenarios of everyday racism. Might be a racist joke, might be a racial microaggression, and we present people with a dilemma of what they would do if they were a witness to one of those instances. And we see a lot of organizations investing so heavily in things like bystandership training, anti-racism training, and all these things can have a really important impact, but oftentimes they're not measuring whether it's actually working. And when we then go to an organization and say, here are your metrics, your people don't know how to respond to these. They're all doing different things. They're not responding in the ways that are actually the correct ways to respond. And yet that doesn't really align with the intentions with the training that you're doing. I think that's probably one of the biggest kind of learnings we get with the companies that we work with, is kind of, we need to do more. It's not simply doing the training, is the training actually working? And that kind of is a wake-up call to the fact that they need to keep doing it year after year. Otherwise, you can't really track whether progress is really being made.
Yeah, I'm just going to bring Faiza into the conversation, because Faiza's got a question around overcoming challenges. And so if we can just do that, I will have the question asked by the questioner. And Faiza, if you just want to unmute, and then you can just direct your question, and either me or Daryl will pick it up. How are we doing?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yep, good.
Hi, I hope you're all well. Yeah, so my name is Faiza, and I wanted to ask, considering your experiences, your knowledge now, what was your biggest challenge? How did you overcome? And what would you have done differently now?
Sure, I'll take this. Biggest challenge was by an absolute mile last year, and trying to not just battle saving our business, battling a pandemic at the same time and staying healthy, both mentally and physically. So that was very, very tough. One of the things that we did that I forgot to mention was that we did something really creative, which was launch a GoFundMe, where people donated almost £30,000 to help us overcome the pandemic, which in the grand scheme of things probably only bought us about a month of life as a business. But in that month actually is when George Floyd was murdered, and in that month was when we came up with this idea. And launching a GoFundMe is tough to do, even when it's for something conventional, let alone when it's asking people to donate to a business that they have no financial interest in. If we had a lot of pride, we probably would never have done that, but we had to think outside the box. It ended up working really well in our favor. We ended up getting featured in Forbes, the Sunday Times, Business Insider, just because it was a very radical thing to do. And I think we really entered survival mode. It was just instinct. Everything we were doing was instinct last year, thinking of ideas as quickly as possible, moving fast, making cutthroat decisions, having to let people go, having to restructure the company, so many different things we had to do. And I think it was like a classic case of when you have too much time to think, sometimes that can lead to bad decisions. But when things are really hitting the fan and you need to make decisions on the spot, that can oftentimes be when you make the best decisions, because sometimes speed in itself can lead to the best decisions. So yeah, I think that's kind of how we navigated it. What I do differently, what would we have? Okay, one thing I definitely have done differently is when we restructured the company, I would have communicated it to our shareholders in a better way. We had so many shareholders at the time, and we kind of were telling them one by one that we are planning on doing all these things. But what we didn't realize is that the world was changing so quickly that between like us communicating our plans to the first shareholder and the 50th, so much had changed that the people that we'd communicated to near the start, what we communicated was no longer relevant. And when we essentially made the decisions we made, like a lot of our shareholders pretty much had no idea that that was our plan. So yeah, being more considerate about who our decisions are impacting is definitely something that I wish we had done differently.
Yeah, yeah, very good answer. Daryl, did you want to chime in on that? Is there anything there that you just add a little bit of color and flavor to?
Yeah, no, I think very similarly. I think one thing that I forced myself to do over the Christmas period was to really reflect on all that we did achieve. I think it's very difficult, especially in a time like last year, where everything feels like it's going wrong, and it really was a struggle emotionally, mentally, to actually turn things around. But because everything's happening so fast, you don't really appreciate all the things that you've achieved. And I imagine if most of us were to reflect on 2020, there are so many things that probably didn't go the way we wanted it to go, but the fact that everyone made it out and is here now having this conversation in itself is an achievement. And all the things we did as a business, I just wish I'd spent more time reflecting on how difficult it was and what we were achieving, because you need to celebrate the small wins when it comes to a year like that. Otherwise, you'll just be miserable. So yeah, finding ways to really reflect on what's going well in times that are difficult, I think is important, and it helps to keep you going. And the more that I reflect on 2020, the more I'm like, how did that happen in the space of 3 months? We literally did like 20 different things and operated probably 10 times as fast as we'd ever operated. And I just wish I'd appreciated that a bit more then, but now I certainly try and take that approach.
Yeah, that's a great reflection. And I have to say, I remember sitting in on your investor call where you had to persuade your investors that you were pivoting from basically Flair Football into Flair Impact, and they were quite different. It wasn't like you were kind of painting something a different color or putting some bells and whistles on. I mean, you were literally destroying one thing, not destroying it, but you were putting one thing, you know, in a drawer, and you were then building something brand new, and you were persuading your investors to follow you in the middle of a pandemic. I mean, it was a big thing. And I remember you guys did it, and you did it powerfully, and you did it with passion, and you did it with logic. And it was a beautiful thing to watch you guys taking your investors with you, which now you're grown-ups, right? Now you're swimming with the sharks and the big boys, right? It's not, you know, this isn't like persuading family and friends to just kind of bankroll you a bit more. These are serious investors with, you know, they've got options about, they can take their money away. And, you know, frankly, that's the way the game often goes. And they didn't. They left their money in. And I've got to say, it was incredibly impressive. Congratulations to you guys for doing that. It's very, as you say, stepping back and reflecting on that, and to have done that is just, I'm in awe of how you guys did that. Really well done. I just want to ask you a little bit about this, because obviously you have actually been interns, or you've done a little bit of, you know, you've experienced what it is to work in the big organizations. If you were just going to give some top tips, Nee, maybe I'll come to you. What do you think, if you were giving advice now to our interns who are starting at the large organizations, whether it's a Goldman or a BlackRock or a Blackstone? I mean, in fact, we've got literally hundreds of organizations, from the very large to a lot smaller. What top tips would you give? What's the key? What's the secret to success and making it so that at the end of your internship, your employers are like, you know what, we want that person in our firm? What would you say, Nee? Let me just ask you that. What would be a top tip you would give?
Yeah, I'll give a few. The first and foremost is to enjoy the process. So don't put unnecessary pressure on yourself. This is an amazing opportunity that not many people will get. So every minute you're there, really reflect on how lucky you are to be in that place and make the most of it. The second thing is network, network, network. A lot of the time, success on an internship is mostly about who you know more so than necessarily how good you are. So you can't be shy. You have to dive really deep and do it from the start. That first week, setting the right tempo, setting the mindset of I'm going to take some risks in terms of who I'm going to reach out to, who I'm going to speak with. Get it. Don't be afraid to get things wrong. A lot of the people who got hired on our internship made a lot of mistakes along the way, but they were the risk takers. They weren't timid. They weren't shy about speaking to people. So yeah, those are two of the main ones. And then the third one is stay healthy. Um, our internship year was the year where someone died from over at BAML, and that show that came out last year was based on our internship year. What was it called? Industry, which I'm sure a lot of you would have watched. So yeah, be sure to take care of yourself. One of Flair's company values is to be healthy, just because I have been through like an internship as well as 2 years at Goldman where I didn't really take care of my health, and it kind of it took its toll. So definitely take care of your physical and mental health. Life is short. You need to prioritize health as well. So make sure that is the first and foremost thing. Enjoy it and really take risks.
Thank you. Thank you. That's very reflective and insightful. A lot of wise words there. Daryl, what would your reflections be?
I think obviously I've had a slightly different experience, but I think launching myself into the deep end of basically starting a company straight after university, it's to be a continuous learner. And even if you start at a point where you don't really know what you're doing, which is how I felt when I began. I just finished uni, I was new to this, and I didn't really have any experience. I took the mindset of I'm maybe not the most qualified, but I'm going to be the fastest learner. I won't let anyone learn at a quicker rate than me. And I think that is really kind of the key to going from a point of being inexperienced and being young to a point where you start to feel competent, to the point where you can start to actually lead other people. So for me, the key thing is just having that mindset of every single day, I'm going to learn. If I make a mistake, I'm going to ask for feedback. When I do something good, we had a webinar last week where we had really good feedback. And every time I spoke to a friend, I was asking, what could have been better? What could have been better? I don't want to hear that it went well. I want to hear what we need to improve. And we've tried to have that mindset from the get-go building this business. And I try to have it for the rest of my life, to be honest. So always be seeking more ways to improve, because even if you've done well at an early age, you're never there. You've never made it. And you need to keep learning every single day.
Yeah, wonderful, wonderful stuff. Listen, we've got a question that has come in, and someone is asking about the business of getting from the idea to the execution. Like, how do you go from, it would be a great idea to build a football spotting talent app, or it would be a great thing to come up with a really slick, cool way of providing firms with data around their approach to race and racism. How do you go from having that idea to execution? Like, what are the steps? If you had to boil that down, what would you say those are, pretty simply? Because it's so daunting. I mean, lots of people have ideas and they never get to the execution. So what do you think it is? Neil, let's start with you.
You know what? I'll let Daryl answer this, because this is like, he's written like an amazing blog post about this. I know he loves talking about this. So you go, Dad.
Yeah, I think it's a 3-step process. It's start with, I guess, the problem. So you need to really clearly define what is the problem you're trying to solve, because ultimately a business is only valuable if you're solving someone's problem out there. Then the next step is to really kind of find a way of really measuring what will define success in actually fixing that problem. And then the last step is all around coming up with solutions. So I guess through that process, one thing that we found really helpful was there's a book called, I think it's called the Mums Test. And that book is just the 101 for how to invalidate whether you have a problem or not. You don't want to jump into coming up with solutions and coming up with features and building the tech unless you've actually spoken to your customers, you figure out what is the pain point. So my advice to anyone starting right now, let's say you have an idea on this call, download or order that book literally immediately and read through it, because that will help you with that first most important step of what is the problem that my business is even trying to solve. It shouldn't even be framed as a business at the beginning. Don't even think of it as a business. Think of it as, I have a hypothesis that there's a problem in the world that needs to be solved. I'm going to do everything in my power to disprove that that hypothesis is true. And the way to do that is to literally follow what's in that book. And that is really the best way to start, in my opinion.
100%. And we even had to basically go through that process when we pivoted. We were starting a company again. And the hypothesis was that organizations don't want to hold themselves accountable to all these actions about race. And within we started this product in the education industry. So within a few conversations with headmasters, we realized that that hypothesis, the hypothesis is true. Like people, or is false, sorry. People do want to hold themselves accountable. And that gave us enough confidence that we had a product there.
You've also, though, in addition to that, you've got to have what it takes, right? It's what I think the astronauts call, or the fast jet test pilots call, the right stuff. You've got to have that extra something. That it's all very well coming up with a hypothesis. It's all very well testing it. It's all very well knowing that it's a thing. At some point, you've got to execute. Mm-hmm. Let's talk a little bit about execution and just moving from the hypothesis testing piece, where some people sit, they never move to the execution, right? How did you bang? I know you talked about this a little bit at the start, but that bit of, we are going, this is it, we're stepping off the diving board, we're jumping off the ledge, off the cliff, whatever you want to call it, that piece, how does that happen?
Yeah, no, great question. I think it's case by case. It depends if you have the in-house expertise to make the leap. So we had a massive blocker of, we can't code. So even if we wanted to build our mobile app, we just couldn't between us. So for us, the most important problem to solve to make that leap was find someone who could code. And through your network, we were able to hire Lee, or to bring him on as a third co-founder. And that was the moment that everything changed. So my response is basically, if there is a blocker to stopping you execute, you should prioritize absolutely everything into removing that blocker. And if that blocker is fear, then you need to find a way to overcome that fear. If that blocker is a lack of resource, go and raise some money. So it's just about working out what the blocker is and removing it. And that it's hard to like teach someone to adopt that mindset. But it's such an obvious like answer, like, but a lot of people don't do it. And I think it might just be because they don't think about things in that way, and really isolating what is preventing me from making that leap. Sometimes I think quite a very common one is people who are in work already and are afraid of losing their income and starting something. And there the blocker is the opportunity cost, I guess, of jumping ship. But when they actually do the maths, a lot of the time the situation is just never as dire as they think. So really there, the thing to do to remove the blocker is just do some modeling of your finances. You probably are going to survive. You can live very, very cheaply if you need to in most circumstances. So yeah, that's my thoughts.
So I'm just going to jump in now quickly and just ask a little bit about the people that you are and how you have turned out the way you have, because we've acknowledged that the system is the way it is, and people look at you the way they look at you. When you walk in the room, they make a judgment about you. They make it, before you said anything, they, depending on who they are, they've come to some kind of conclusion, right? For good or for bad. But you said at the start, Nee, and I'm Daryl, I know you feel the same way, that I fear no one, we fear nothing. We know what we've got to do and we just get the job done and we find our way. Just listening to you talking just now, we find a way around it. It's a bit like, I think it's Alexander the Great or Hannibal who said, find a way or make one. And so that's a mindset. How have you ended up like that? Would you put it down to nature or nurture? Is it partly your upbringing? You guys didn't just suddenly wake up one day kind of, at Warwick University with great grades and going into Goldman and Accenture and setting up your business and knowing what. There's been a whole kind of bringing up behind you and, the way you've been brought up. To what extent has that played a part, would you say, in making you the people that you are today?
That's a good question. It's hard to fully know. I imagine it's going to be a mix of both nature and nurture. I guess for me, it's been about role models largely growing up. I've been very, very, very lucky to have parents and a family and just being surrounded by people who have inspired me and shown me what's possible. I guess
like what does that look like then in you just putting a picture to it? What's it look like?
I guess for my my family, so when my dad mum and dad moved from Ghana to the UK, and my dad had to work incredibly hard to get his first job as a doctor within the UK, and that meant having to redo a lot of his qualifications that he'd already done in Ghana. And he was an incredibly qualified doctor by all accounts, but he had to then redo everything. And he still didn't see that as a barrier, even though at the time it was a very difficult challenge to overcome. It was moving to a new country. And at the end of the day, he overcame that, and my parents collectively overcame that. And kind of seeing those type of examples growing up, or seeing my brother and my sister achieve incredible things at school, then made me want to achieve incredible things at school. So seeing some of my friends, literally just some of the smartest people I know who I went to school with, again, inspired me to then think, okay, I can get really good grades as well if they're doing it. So I think surrounding myself with good people, whether that's from luck or whether that's actively seeking out those people, I think the older I've got, the more I've purposefully tried to align myself with people who bring me up, who inspire me. When younger, I guess it's more down to your circumstance, but everyone on this call will be in a position where they can try to align themselves with the right people. The fact that you're on this call means you're already aligned in some way to Dawid and Nee and I and everyone else organizing this. So that in itself is testament to this. Are you going to reach out? Are you going to build that connection? And doing things like that really gives you a network of people who bring you up and get you to a point where you think you can do everything, because you're seeing people out there who are doing everything. So yeah.
Where you think you can do everything and believe you can do everything. Nee, is that your story?
Yeah, similar story, I guess. Some additional points. I think having mentors who are inspiring. So Dawid has been my mentor since, I guess, I was 16, because I interned at Mallow Street back in the day. And yeah, it's always good to have people that you can see a bit of yourself in to look up to. And then, yeah, I guess Daryl's point about the parent situation, very, very similar. I mean, our parents are siblings and they've both worked in, God knows, like burger joints. And now my mum works for Bank of America and his dad's a top doctor in the NHS. So their lives have been harder than ours could ever be.
And your mom and Daryl's dad are brother and sister.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And their lives have been harder than ours could ever be. And if they've managed to achieve what they've done, then I don't see why we can't. Yeah, so that's been a big motivator. And I think just innately as well, like I'm just a competitive person, so I don't like the idea of just settling. I'd rather beat my previous self every single day. So yeah, that I'd say is probably the innate bit, and he's 10 times more competitive than me, so
yeah. Listen, there are a couple of questions I'd really just like to quickly bring in here. So there's a question from Zemaka. Zemaka, let's bring you in, and then Winnie, we're going to bring you in as well. So Zemaka, I think we're going to try and very quickly sneak you into the conversation. And you're going to ask a question about app developers. So let's do that.
Hi. Is it me?
Oh yeah, you're in. Good.
Okay. So my question was about how you were saying you were looking on your phone and you couldn't see like any Black app developers. And I was kind of wondering, so I know you guys kind of you started your business. I was wondering whether like how important you think like schemes like 100 Black interns are, or whether people should just, I don't know, like just start their own business, or do you need a community?
It's a really good question. So I think even though Daryl, out of the two of us, went straight out of uni to build the app, a lot of the apps, the reason why we're able to build the app is that we fundraised, and a lot of our fundraising came from the network I'd built when I was working at Goldman and in the city. So I think it would have been pretty hard for us to build that type of business without funding. Perhaps we could have built this business that we're in now straight out of uni, because it kind of pays for itself. A lot of the work we do is revenue generating, whereas with Flair Football, like an app-based business, a lot of apps don't generate enough revenue until they have a huge user base. So yeah, that's my hunch. Also, it's very rare when you look at the success stories of all the big companies that they've come straight out of uni. If they have, a lot of the time they've come out of an MBA program and have worked before that. The Mark Zuckerbergs of the world are very, very rare. So my strong recommendation is to build the professional network first. Daryl, you might disagree. You might say, nah, I could have done this without you. So let's yeah.
I think it just depends. I think definitely there are just so many benefits from building your connections, but I think that's not mutually exclusive with having been in the working world. And some of the people I speak to who are really young and just like, they're already on LinkedIn. I wasn't on LinkedIn until I was 22. They've got 2,000 connections and they're 18. It shows that you can still build that network even at a young age. It's just a question of when you start. And I think part of the reason why oftentimes people have to wait until they're in the working world, working 2 years at wherever they're working, is because they don't start young enough. And I wish I'd started younger. I wish I'd been doing that networking. I wish I'd been on events like this, getting these tips, so that when I was 18 or 20 or whenever it was, I would have been doing this. I would have been on every event, networking people, messaging everyone. And I think with that mindset, I could have still been building this company. So I think the key is start early, build your network. And even if you haven't worked in a big corporate, don't let that be a blocker.
Yeah, that's a great answer. Zemeka, good answer.
Yeah, that was a great answer. It's kind of like a balance of both.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Well, look, thanks, Zemeka. Thanks for coming in and joining us. Look, we had Winnie, but Winnie's chop it out. So I'm going to ask her question. Winnie basically says, what do you think about finding a co-founder who's equally passionate? Like, do you think it's been a powerful thing having the two of you? Or do you think, like, she says, I'm a female founder in the early stages of executing my idea, and I'm just, it's just me. Do you think she's effectively, I think, saying, do you think I need a co-founder? For me, by the way, when I started Reddington, I co-founded it with Rob Gardner, the two of us, and I definitely, the yin and the yang of the two of us was without a doubt a key factor. So what do you think? Daryl, let me throw this to you, and then I'll ask Nee.
For us, it's been absolutely pivotal. I think the nature of being first-time founders meant that there was certain gaps in our knowledge that we kind of balanced each other out in a way. So I think on that front, on an emotional front, doing it with someone who's equally passionate is again important, because there are times when things won't, in fact, most of the time things won't be going well and it'll feel like you're pushing uphill. and you're struggling for years and years and years. And even now, we're still always feeling like, okay, it's never easy and plain sailing, and having someone else to kind of, I guess, give emotional support can be helpful for that. And that's especially important when they're someone who's founded it as well and cares a lot. That said, I do see examples of companies doing well with solo founders. I haven't had experience of it, so I'm biased to saying if you can try and find someone who's passionate about what you're doing, then that would probably be the best route. And in terms of how to do that, the starting point is just to speak to people. It's funny that the way that Flare started in the very, very early days was that I had a few ideas, Nee had a few ideas, and I think I just messaged Nee at some point, just being like, I've got this idea, can you fill out this survey? Because I'm thinking, is this a good idea or not? And then he was like, wait a minute, I've got an idea as well. And that was literally how it started off. And I know it's lucky because we're cousins, but if I hadn't have messaged him and put the word out and started speaking to people, we maybe would have never started Flare. So if you don't have a co-founder, the first starting point is just to speak to people in your network. Otherwise, you won't find one.
Yeah, totally. And Nee, I'm going to just ask you this quickly. I mean, in terms of the relationship between, because co-founders, the stress is on you both. It's all very well being cousins, and it's nice when you meet up at Christmas and you can all be, it's all good. But when you're starting a business together, that's a whole different dynamic, right? You live and die by what the other, you've got to completely trust each other kind of with your lives, basically. I mean, what is your relationship like? And is it like rock solid? Just give us a little insight.
Yeah, I mean, Flare has definitely brought us a lot closer. We are each other's girlfriends' worst enemy, I suppose, because we spend all of our time on the phone to each other. And we argue. Arguing is healthy. And I'd say we debate, actually. We debate. Oftentimes, the way we kind of resolve things is whenever we disagree, if someone feels very, very passionate about something, it's probably a sign that they're right, because we would have debated and debated and debated. Both of us are both like we're quite realistic and pragmatic about things. So if we're wrong, we'll admit it. And a lot of the time when we debate, it ends up in one of us just admitting that we were wrong. So if that doesn't happen, usually that's a sign that person is probably correct. So yeah, it just depends. And I think something else that's really helped is delineating who is responsible for who in the team, so we don't kind of step on each other's toes. Also delineating our own workload. So for example, I do a lot of the sales calls and fundraising. Daryl focuses more on the products and marketing. And just having a 50-50 ownership split has helped as well. So we're both equally incentivized. Yeah, so I think that has really, really helped things.
Well, look, our time is gone. I could keep talking to you guys for even longer, but it's just been absolutely fabulous. Congratulations. I've got to say that you're two of the most impressive guys that I know out there. The stuff you're doing, the fact that you co-founded not just co-founded, but then you pivoted in the middle of a pandemic. You're so self-assured in front of your investors, in front of your customers, in front of the world. You're a complete testament and testimony to what good looks like in this space. And I've got to say, you guys are clearly going places. And what I love is the fact that one day I'm going to be able to play this and I'm going to say, you see, this is where these guys started, right? Look at where they are. Look at where they are now. So congratulations on everything. And thanks for taking the time to come and hang out with us and just give your top tips. I'm sure everybody will appreciate it and they'll write good stuff in the chat.
One last thing, I'm posting our LinkedIn's in the chat, so please do connect with us.
Yeah, great idea. Put your LinkedIn's out there, and ladies and gentlemen, follow these guys, okay, and ask for the top tips, because they're down to earth, they're realistic, they're going places, that's for sure, but they're still down to earth. They have their feet on the ground, and I've known them for many years, and I think they're absolutely fabulous. So do connect. We're gonna hit the end meeting button in like about 10 seconds time. So click soon or copy it or just Google them. You'll be able to find them or check them out on LinkedIn. So thanks, guys. Thanks, Nee.
Thank you,
Thanks,
everyone.
Daryl. Thanks very much indeed. And thanks, Stu, as well. Stu's behind the scenes, but I know Stu's been a huge mentor to you guys, and just, you know, being on your board and just helping you think through things as well. I know he's behind the scenes there wishing you all the best as well. So good luck with everything. And we look forward to seeing what Flare Impact's going to do.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Take care, everyone.